Imagine a perfect world. No hunger, no predators, no cold nights, no struggle to survive. Now imagine that world slowly destroying the creatures inside it. That was the strange nightmare John B. Calhoun built for mice. At first, it looked like paradise. The animals had food whenever they wanted it. They had clean water. They had soft nesting spaces. They had no cats, no owls, no snakes, no storms, no winter, and no need to search for anything. Their world was safe. Too safe. Because the real question was not whether mice could survive without danger. The real question was what would happen when survival became easy, but social life became crowded, confusing, and broken. And that question still feels uncomfortable today, because your brain does not only need food, it needs space, it needs status, it needs roles, it needs a reason to move toward tomorrow. Calhoun was an American ethologist and researcher who worked for the National Institute of Mental Health. He spent years studying how animals behave when too many bodies are forced into too little social space. His most famous experiment became known as Universe 25. The name sounds almost science fiction, and in a way it was. Universe 25 was a specially designed mouse enclosure. It was not a dirty cage, it was not a cruel maze. It was a carefully built world with constant food, constant water, protected nesting areas, and no outside danger. It was meant to remove the old problems. No hunger, no disease outbreak from filth, no predators, no escape. Only mice, comfort, and time. When the first mice entered, the world seemed to work exactly as expected. They explored, they nested, they mated. The population grew. A small colony became a larger colony. The system looked successful. Then something changed. Not all at once, slowly. The problem was not that the mice ran out of food. They did not. The problem was not that the enclosure physically could not hold more bodies. It could. The problem was that their social world started to collapse before their physical world did. That is the part people remember, and sometimes that is the part people misunderstand. Calhoun called one of the patterns a behavioral sink. In simple words, it means that social behavior began flowing into crowded, unhealthy patterns, like water draining into a broken hole. The mice were drawn into certain crowded areas even when less crowded spaces were available. They gathered where stimulation, contact, tension, and confusion were already thick. They did not just live near each other, they crashed into each other socially. Males lost stable roles. Some became aggressive. Some withdrew. Some failed to defend territory. Mothers became stressed and inconsistent. Pups were neglected. Normal courtship broke down. Families stopped forming in the usual way. And then came the most haunting group. Calhoun described some mice as the beautiful ones. They were physically healthy. Their fur was clean. They were not injured. They ate. They slept. They groomed themselves. They looked perfect from the outside. But they had stopped doing the things that make a mouse life continue. They did not fight for territory. They did not court mates. They did not raise young. They did not build a future. They lived in the upper spaces of the enclosure, away from the chaos below, almost like animals who had escaped the pain of the society by escaping participation in it. They were alive, but socially, they were gone. This is why Universe 25 became famous. It looked like a warning about overcrowding. It looked like a tiny prophecy about cities, apartments, loneliness, and modern life. In the 1960s and 1970s, many people were already afraid of population growth. Paul Ehrlich had written The Population Bomb. Urban planners, psychologists, and politicians were asking what crowded cities might do to the human mind. Then Calhoun's mice seemed to give them an image. A paradise that became a prison. A world with everything except meaning. But the real lesson is more careful than the viral version. The experiment does not prove that humans are doomed like mice. It does not prove that cities destroy civilization. It does not prove that comfort makes people weak. Humans are not mice with phones, jobs, languages, art, religion, law, memory, and culture. Your brain is shaped by biology, but your world is also shaped by meaning. That difference matters. Still, the experiment touches something real because it shows that survival is not just calories and shelter. A living creature also needs a working social environment. It needs predictable rules. It needs healthy distance. It needs a place in the group that makes sense. Your ancestors knew this without needing a laboratory. For most of human history, your survival depended on a small group. You had to know who trusted you. You had to know who could share food, who might turn against you, who needed help, and who had power. Your nervous system evolved inside a world where social information was not background noise. It was life or death. A look mattered. A silence mattered. Being pushed away from the group mattered. So your brain still scans social space like an ancient map. It asks quiet questions all day. Where do you belong? Who sees you? Who ignores you? What role do you have here? Are you needed? Modern life gives you something strange. It can give you more people than your brain can truly know, and fewer deep roles than your brain can truly feel. You can pass hundreds of faces in a city and feel unseen. You can scroll through thousands of lives and feel outside all of them. You can be surrounded by contact and still feel socially starved. That is not exactly Universe 25, but it rhymes, because the pain is not just being alone. Sometimes the pain is being near others without a meaningful place among them. That is the twist. Crowding and loneliness are not opposites. They can live together. A packed train can feel lonely. A huge school can feel lonely. A busy office can feel lonely. A social feed full of voices can feel lonely. Your brain may receive endless signals, but very few of them say, "You matter here." Calhoun's mice did not collapse because life was comfortable in one simple way. They collapsed because the structure of social life failed. The young could not learn normal roles. Adults could not maintain stable patterns. Contact became constant but not nourishing. The body was fed, but the social system was starving. And your brain understands that difference. You can eat enough and still feel empty. You can have a room and still feel unsafe. You can have messages and still feel unwanted. You can have options and still feel directionless. This is where the Calhoun effect becomes more than a mouse story. It becomes a mirror. Not because humans are trapped in a laboratory, but because modern life can sometimes separate comfort from connection, stimulation from purpose, and safety from meaning. Your ancestors did not live in paradise. Their world was dangerous. Hunger was real. Injury was real. Disease was real. Predators were real. But their social world often forced participation. You had tasks. You had duties. You had people watching you, needing you, judging you, teaching you, depending on you. That could be harsh, but it was also clear. In a small group, your role was not abstract. Your effort had a face attached to it. You carried wood and someone got warm. You shared food and someone lived. You watched a child and the group continued. You repaired a tool and tomorrow became possible. The modern world can hide the meaning of your actions. You work, but the result may feel distant. You communicate, but the contact may feel thin. You live near thousands of people, but few of them know your name. You have more comfort than your ancestors, but sometimes less visible belonging. That is why the story stays viral. Not because it is a perfect prediction, because it puts a picture around a feeling you already recognize. A clean cage, full bowls, empty purpose. The most disturbing part of Universe 25 was not violence, it was withdrawal. It was the beautiful ones polishing themselves while the world below them stopped renewing itself. They were not monsters. They were not sick in a simple way. They were creatures who seemed to have lost the social script for becoming part of life. That image is easy to misuse. Some people turn it into a rant about modern society. Some use it to blame comfort, cities, women, technology, or young people. But that is too simple. It turns a careful experiment into a slogan. The better question is deeper. What does a creature need besides resources? What does your brain need besides convenience? What does a society need besides keeping bodies alive? Calhoun himself was not just trying to create doom. He was interested in design. He wanted to understand how space and social structures shape behavior. His work influenced conversations about architecture, urban planning, mental health, and the hidden stress of crowding. The lesson is not that density is always bad. Some dense places are full of life. Markets, festivals, campuses, neighborhoods, and cities can create energy, cooperation, art, and invention. Humans can build rules, rituals, privacy, public spaces, friendships, institutions, and shared stories. These are not small details. They are the difference between crowding and community. Crowding is bodies pressing against each other without trust. Community is people sharing space with roles, boundaries, and meaning. Your brain can feel the difference quickly. You feel it when you enter a room where nobody knows how to act. You feel it when a group has no warmth, no order, no welcome, no clear place for you. You feel it when everyone is technically connected, but nobody is truly responsible for anyone else. Your nervous system does not simply count people. It reads patterns. Is there safety here? Is there respect here? Is there a place for me here? That is why a quiet dinner with 3 trusted people can feel richer than a crowded room of strangers. It is why one honest conversation can calm you more than 100 notifications. It is why belonging is not the same as visibility. Visibility means people can see you. Belonging means your presence changes something. The Calhoun Effect, in its most useful form, is not a prophecy of collapse. It is a warning about social design. If a world gives its creatures food but no healthy way to belong, something breaks. If a world gives stimulation but no stable roles, something breaks. If a world gives safety but no purpose, something breaks. Not always loudly, sometimes quietly. Sometimes the collapse looks like aggression. Sometimes it looks like neglect. Sometimes it looks like a creature grooming itself in the corner, clean and calm, with no interest in the future. That is what makes the story so eerie. Because the failure does not always look like suffering from the outside. Sometimes it looks polished, productive, comfortable, well-dressed, well-fed, online, available, fine. But underneath, the social circuits are asking a question they cannot answer. Where do I belong? Calhoun's mice could not rebuild their world. They could not redesign the enclosure. They could not invent new rituals. They could not write laws, create art, start clubs, build cities differently, or tell stories about what was happening to them. You can. That is the human difference. Your brain carries ancient needs, but it also carries imagination. You can notice when your life has become crowded but not connected. You can notice when comfort has replaced purpose. You can notice when your world gives you signals, but not relationships. And you can change small pieces of the design. You can make space where people know each other's names. You can choose depth over endless stimulation. You can build routines that make you useful to someone real. You can protect solitude without turning it into isolation. You can seek community instead of just contact. None of this means returning to the past. Your ancestors' world was not better in some simple, romantic way. It was dangerous, unfair, painful, and short. But it understood one thing your nervous system still understands. A creature does not live by resources alone. It lives by connection, pattern, role, and meaning. That is why a perfect world can fail. Not because comfort is evil, not because humans are mice, but because life needs more than the removal of pain. It needs a structure for becoming part of something. So the next time you feel strangely empty in a world that gives you almost everything, do not assume you are broken. Your brain may be noticing a mismatch older than civilization. It may be asking for something no full bowl, bright screen, or comfortable room can fully replace. A place, a role, a real connection, a reason to move toward tomorrow. Calhoun built a perfect world for mice and watched it fall apart. But the real lesson is not that paradise destroys life. The real lesson is that a world can look perfect and still forget what living creatures are actually for. Imagine a perfect world,